Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Attack of the Killer Tomatoes by Jeff Strand, based on the original screenplay by Costa Dillon, John DeBello, and Steve Peace. And this is from Encyclopocalypse. Get that glare off of there. Encyclopocalypse Publications. And what a wonderful, wonderful cover that is. So, you know what? I'm not even going to beat around the bush. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It is one of the funniest books I have ever read. Definitely top 5. Absolutely hilarious. Now, for those of you who don't know, this book is about tomatoes attacking people and killing them. Tomatoes start attacking people, start killing them, start growing to gigantic proportions, and we meet a bunch of characters that are going to try to stop the tomato menace. Just for fun, back cover copies. Back cover copy. UFOs, Bigfoot, communists. The government has swiftly dealt with many a crisis, but can it survive the diabolical attack of the killer tomatoes? After a series of bizarre and increasingly horrific attacks from pulpy red seeded fruit, Mason Dixon finds himself leading a crack team of specialists to save the planet. But will they be quick enough to save everyone? To save you? You can't run. You can't swim. There's nowhere to hide. The killer tomatoes are everywhere. So, that should be enough of a nutshell. To pique your interest. All right. Why is this book so good? Why do I give it 5 out of 5? Why do I think it's one of the funniest books I've ever read? Well, first of all, Jeff Strand, great author. Second of all, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is a ridiculous premise. It's a ridiculous movie. I saw it back in the 80s. It was either the weekend before I left for boot camp for the Air Force, or it was while I was home on leave after boot camp the weekend before I shipped out to California. It was one of those 2 times. I had a bunch of friends over, and we watched Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And it's a goofy movie. It's low budget. It's ridiculous. It's just, you've got tomatoes rolling around. Basically, people off camera rolling a tomato along the floor, and people seeing it and screaming. And then, as I said, they grow to gigantic proportions. And so then you have people rolling giant tomatoes at the victims, or even throwing them from off screen, because sometimes they're flying at their victims. The characters are ridiculous. It's the dialogue, the sight gags. It's a fantastic movie. It's low budget, it's dumb, but it's incredibly funny and incredibly entertaining. And Jeff Strand takes that and builds on it. There are, right off the bat, I think it's the very first scene in the movie. I watched the movie right after I finished the book. It's on Tubi for free with ads. So I watched it. I think it's the regular theatrical cut. I believe there's a director's cut. Not 100% sure. But very first scene, there's just a woman in her kitchen doing dishes, and she sees a tomato in the sink. So in the movie, tomato in the sink, it's spinning around, it's moving on its own, it jumps out of the sink, she screams, and then I think we cut to her being dead on the floor and the cops are there. And so this is the first scene in the book, and Jeff Strand expands it. As a good author would do, we get into the character's head. It's if written exactly as we see it on the screen, it would be a page maybe. And Jeff Strand as I said, he expands that. It's more than one page, and we get some a little bit of character development. Maybe I should mention, since I talked about the first scene, there's actually a preface, and which is in itself hilarious. It's a few pages long, and it talks about the the amazing, award-winning movie Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Spoilers for the preface. According to what it says, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes won 5 Oscars. And Star Wars, that came out the year before, lost its Oscar for special effects because the Academy was ashamed to have given it to Star Wars after they ended up seeing Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Talks about how the inability of anyone to do a novelization. Obviously, a crazy preface, but hilarious. And this book is meta. There are plenty of times where the author will cut into the story. He'll say things like, this was a sight gag in the movie. It doesn't work as well in a book. Or I think there might be a point where says something about a movie having a budget, and he can books have unlimited budgets, and so this is a bigger scene than in the movie. And there are a lot of scenes that are changed. There's one in particular where a bunch of government people get together, and I think it's supposed to be part of the joke that scene is completely the opposite from a physical and visual standpoint. This scene where these government officials get together for the first time in the book is completely the opposite of the scene in the movie. And I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say exactly what I'm talking about, although my hand gestures have sort of given it away. So there are a number of scenes in the book like this where he changes things from the movie, but again, this says based on the original screenplay, which is always what ends up on screen. So maybe the things that he has added were actually in the original screenplay, obviously, except for the stuff about the difference between a movie and a book and the author interrupting. There's even a part where the editor interrupts. So this reminded me of like a mix between Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Monty Python stuff, spoof movies like Airplane or Hot Shots. Throw all of that together with the ridiculous plot of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and you have one of the funniest books I have ever read. I was constantly laughing out loud. It's something I will definitely read again when I need a good laugh, when I need a pick-me-up. I'll be reading this again. So funny. There is, I will say, there's a character in the movie that just sort of disappears, that has more story, or at least we find out what happened to them in the book. There are some big differences in some of the scenes. So even if you've seen the movie, definitely a book worth reading because it is so different. Again, there's a huge thing that happens at the end, towards the end, that is not in the movie, at least the version that I watched immediately after I finished reading the book. I don't know if it was in the screenplay and was just way too expensive for them to film, but it's insanity. And like I said, definitely not something that's in the movie. Excuse me. So, I think that covers everything I wanted to say. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes by Jeff Strand from Cyclopocalypse Publications. 5 out of 5. Absolutely hilarious book. There are sequels to the movie. Maybe Jeff Strand will write the novelizations of those as well. I believe it's the second movie that has George Clooney in it. Don't know if it's his first movie ever, but it's definitely one early in his career. So, yeah, that's it. 5 out of 5. Attack the Killer Tomatoes, Jeff Strand. My question for this video seems like it would be the obvious question. Have you ever seen the movie? What did you think about it? And I guess, have you ever seen any of the sequels? I don't think I've ever seen the sequels. Maybe the second one. Can't recall. I'm going to have to find them and watch them, see if they're as good as the original. I've already mentioned, I've seen it. I saw it way back in the day, back in 1986, and then I just saw it, excuse me, a week ago, because I watched it as soon as I finished reading the book. And I love it. I don't remember how I felt. I think I enjoyed it back in the day, but I was hanging out with friends. We were watching a cheap, low budget, bad movie. But I don't think it's really a bad movie. I think it is what they wanted it to be. And yes, it's goofy, but it's absolutely hilarious. And there are scenes, there are things that happen in this movie that make it clear that it's a straight up goofy, again, Monty Python-esque comedy. And it works. It's so funny. So, yeah. Let me know. Have you seen it? What did you think? Have you seen the sequels? What did you think of those? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. If you'd care to follow me, wait. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. Now, if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is ErikSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH5757. I realize I've been leaning forward, which is just how excited I am. I'm getting in your face. That's how excited this book has made me. But that's all I have for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Erik Smith. And until next time, read more books.